Kirby Smart is now going to be called Kirby Not Smart until he can learn to take his 3 points in a game where you've only beat the team one time, but you have 100+ wins against everybody else. You already know what time it is. Welcome back into the NFL with AJL, episode 121. Plenty of other sports podcasts out there, but you're right here with us, tapped in on the show. We're forever grateful for that. You already see who we got in the studios. We were chopping up all things college football week 5 as it was absolutely crazy. Plenty of games. But of course, before we get started, y'all make sure to like and share the show wherever you may be watching. Leave us a review on podcast platforms. Subscribe on YouTube. Hit the bell so you never miss a post. The link tree down in the description at NFL with AJL is all social media and podcast platforms. Again, you see who I got in the studio. We've been doing college football content all year at Marcus Talk Sports from the Give Us a Shot Network from Protect Our Queens, the WNBA podcast. You know everything that he does. Marcus, what's good, man? Welcome into the show as always.
My guy, how you feeling, man? I'm just glad to be back. I feel like I say this to you all the time, but it's nice to know that there are people out here who enjoy talking to me all the time. Makes me feel a little bit loved in the world. So I appreciate it.
You know we got you, man. You always you're deep into the takes, into the games, and I know you said you wanted to get into some more college, and I was like, hey, I'm always looking for someone to consistently record content with, and that's clearly going to be you and I as we get through this college football season. So let's jump right into it. Again, at NFL with AJL, at Marcus Talk Sports on all platforms. FSU messed around and found out in an ACC matchup against Virginia on the road, one of the overtime wins of the weekend. They go down 46-38 amid a controversial touchdown no call, which unfortunately I believe that was the right verdict. We had some good reviews this weekend for a few games, but give me your takeaways on this one, man. That FSU goes down as a top team. We had some other top teams go down this week as well.
I was honestly, as I've said it a couple times on the show, I was honestly looking forward to a potential Florida State-Miami matchup where both teams are unbeaten. That is the matchup we're going to see next Saturday. Unfortunately, both teams won't be undefeated now that Florida State's lost, but I'm still not concerned about this loss. This is their first loss on the season, so obviously their first loss in conference play. And you're not going to win them all, right? There's a reason why there's only been a handful of teams in the history of college football to actually go undefeated. Yep. As far as my views on Florida State, they don't change. I still think Tommy Castellanos is one of the most exciting quarterbacks in football, or in the nation, rather. I still have a lot of faith in this Florida State team. I still think Florida State and Miami will see each other in the ACC championship game. The only apprehension I have now, though, is that, of course, Florida State kind of has to win against Miami because a loss then makes you a 2-loss team in the conference, and there's no way they're going to see the ACC title game with 2 losses in the conference, which also means there's no way they're going to see the college football playoff with 2 losses either, because they would essentially be at best the 3rd best team in the conference at that point. And we know how the committee feels about the ACC compared to the Big Ten or the SEC. So in the grand scheme of things, I'm not too concerned. I still think they have what it takes to, I believe that they're on the road in that game. I still think they have what it takes to go into Miami and beat the Hurricanes next weekend, but it just there's a little bit more pressure now for that game with this loss. That's really my biggest takeaway. I'm not super concerned about them at all, though.
I'm shocked that you're not concerned about Florida State, man, because if you're going to go on and say that, Tommy Castellanos is still one of the better quarterbacks in the country, which I believe that he is, I'm not going to take that away from him. But this game was very concerning for Florida State. And now, the whole thing is Florida State looking ahead to next week with that big matchup with Miami? And, I don't think you can come out and say that one, because I believe Mike Norvell and his crew were very prepared even in this loss, because now next week, it is going to be concerning. Like, how are you going to be in Hard Rock Stadium? What are you going to be like on the road, back-to-back road ACC matchup? So we're really getting to see, what Florida State is made out of. And I like to call these weekends, before I get into my takes, I like to call these weekends recognition weekends in college football. You figure out who everybody kind of is. Like, you got the smash mouth matchups. We have the SEC, the ACC, the Big Ten, and they were just rolling out the punches. Like, you were really coming to figure out in these big conference matchups, which can be pivotal. We've seen it all across the board of what people are really made of. So I came up with that one as we were getting into this weekend, and I'm like, these are great. Like, it felt like we kind of had that in week 1, maybe in week 3, but week 5 unquestionably was recognition weekend. And I'm just going to bring some absolute alarm to the Florida State Seminoles in this game, man, because they had 3 turnovers in the first 13 minutes of the ball game. One was wiped away, which did look like the correct call. I kind of thought it was crazy within itself, but either way, the call was what it was on the field, and that kind of did bail them out to only make it 2 official turnovers. But outside of that first forced fumble, the other turnovers were pretty preventable early on. Like, you had a batted ball at the line close to Castellanos, which ended up being an INT, and then the receiver just ended up dropping the ball after having possession. So those were just a couple of key turnovers that really came back to bite them in the game, and this had to go to overtime because Virginia was defensively stealing those possessions from you. And FSU was just playing soft at the line of scrimmage, man. Like, there were light boxes, they were very sloppy in the middle of the field coverage, and FSU was able to battle back. Like, they ran 3 nice Wildcat touchdown plays, which oddly enough, even the second time, even the third time, like, Virginia just had no clue that it was coming. But you do force an interception, and you do also show the resiliency on the road for Florida State. So that is one big takeaway there, is like, this Mike Norvell-led team is going to consistently fight to the end, and I'm glad that they really, did in this one. FSU did get even defensively, which I really did like to see. They had their own back-to-back drives of interceptions on Virginia's quarterback Morris, who, let's just call it what it is. He played out of his mind in this game, and outside of his turnovers, which were like the only blemishes you could say on the game, he outplayed Tommy Castellanos in this ACC matchup. And I hate to say that for a team like Florida State, for a quarterback like Tommy C, but it truly just is what it is. There was a lot of awful tackling, 3 straight rushing touchdowns for the first 21 points of the game, and then they're just going to wear you down on the ground. That was really the method that Virginia was coming out and showing, and FSU just wanted to turn around and complement that with awful tackling, allowing VA to tie it at 21 before the half. You miss a 44-yard field goal dead on in the middle of the field. Just more self-inflicted wounds. These teams combined for 467 rushing yards. FSU ran for 256, Virginia with 211. But FSU's run defense in this game, even though there was a lot back and forth, I thought they looked more porous and just really not prepared situationally like Virginia really did in this one. The eye test didn't lie to me, and I think that's why it's very important to, watch these snaps, watch this tape, and really just be able to understand, what these teams are bringing to the table. But FSU consistently missing those tackles put them in those kinds of positions in this game. And Morris himself should have had 4 rushing touchdowns in this ball game. One of them was waved off. Again, he is an absolute baller. Him outplaying Castellanos, really just due to the turnovers of Tommy in this game. I mean, Morris just really delivered for Virginia. Multiple scrambles, like really a Riley Leonard, Haynes King Jr. type of build, but just a much better arm, much better pocket passer. I thought it was very cool for the operations booth to actually show us that insane touchdown pass from Castellanos to Pittman. Like, they actually had you tap in, heard them communicating back and forth. And of course, we heard, multiple fans be like, oh, I wonder what that would have sounded like during the Auburn-Oklahoma game or some of these other questionable SEC referees. And I just think that's something, now that they opened the can of worms, like, let's have the fans see what it's actually like for the communications when you're making this call. A lot of people are going to say that FSU was potentially robbed in this game versus Virginia. But when you look at, I think you're so tempted in that game to call that a touchdown out of sheer respect for Deuce Robinson sticking with the ball. Like, you can literally see the concentration from his eyes as you're going through that progression of the game and just going through the play on the replay. And like, he was able to bring it in. I mean, you see it frame by frame. But unfortunately, him having the ball at the end of his fingertips and then losing that possession once going out of bounds before pulling it to his body is exactly why they called this one incomplete. And it's really tough because Castellanos and Robinson were special all game long, but honestly did what they needed to do in that moment to potentially score that touchdown. And, people are going to come out and say that Florida State was robbed. And I'm sure it's going to feel like a hometown call for Virginia because they are the home team. That one was very tough to see Florida State and not have that call go their way. And I wanted to believe that he caught it, but it was just very clear that the possession was not close to his body. And you have Castellanos throw an interception before the legendary field storm from Virginia. Legend still has it that that wide receiver and that DB are still being trampled underneath everybody in the end zone. I mean, you don't even see them come up. I'm like, wow, I hope they're not getting stepped on because it can get really dangerous in that point. But it was just so heavily disappointing for Florida State to really look ahead, to mess around, to find out, and just further stain the Heisman candidacy. Not that it was stained before with Tommy Castellanos, but like, this game's going to stain your Heisman candidacy. It's obviously staining your performance that you're putting on tape. And just the fact that even though Morris did throw 3 interceptions, his guts to put it on the line multiple times with his legs, I just really thought was an elite trait. And that's why Virginia was really able to take this one home. But you guys get in the comments, let us know what you think of Florida State losing a huge game in overtime to Virginia. What do you think of Tommy Castellanos? And are there any remarks around Mike Norvell and really how he coached in this game? Kirby Smart is now going to be called Kirby Not Smart until he can learn to take his 3 points in a game where you've only beat the team one time, but you have 100+ wins against everybody else. Yes, I'm talking about Georgia and Alabama's matchup where Georgia goes down at home 24-21, 33-game home winning streak snapped. Second longest home winning streak in the SEC, and it was the longest active home winning streak in college football. Take it away, Marcus.
I've got 2 major takeaways from this game, one from each side. I think the first one is that Georgia needs to lean on Zachariah Branch more. We've talked about this. They have to start leaning on him more. Against Alabama, their passing game looked a little bit flat, in my opinion, but Zachariah Branch was one of the only guys really creating separation and making plays in space. He's averaging, I believe, 16 yards after the catch this year, which is towards the top of the country. It's elite, but he's not being featured in the offense the way that you would think that he should be featured in the offense when you have those types of numbers, right? And if Georgia wants to stay in the playoff conversation, they can't just ride Chauncey Bowens as good as he is. Like, Zachariah Branch has the skill set, as I've said to you before, to be in conversation with Jeremiah Smith, to be in conversations with Ryan Williams, and to, quite frankly, open up this entire passing attack. But Georgia's got to actually give him the ball. Like, they actually have to put the ball in his hands so that he can do those things. As for Alabama, as really weird as it has been to watch Alabama football now for the last year and a quarter without Nick Saban, I think this win proved that Alabama is still a team to be worried about come playoff time. They just walked into Georgia, snapped a 33-game home winning streak, which was the longest in the college football, as you mentioned. And they did it with poise. They were in control for most of, if not the entire game.
Yeah,
Ty Simpson accounted for 3 touchdowns. The offense was 12 for 19 on third downs, and their defense came up with a massive stop on 4th and 1 late in the fourth quarter. That is proof that a little bit of that championship DNA that Nick Saban instilled still exists in there somewhere. So even though they did lose week 1 against Florida State, and it was kind of a surprising win to most, I don't think we should let that fool us a bit at this point. Alabama has proven, at the very least for now, that they are still Alabama, and nobody wants to see this team in December. I think those are really my big 2 takeaways, however you want to slice it. I do still think Georgia can be a championship contender, and I do still think Alabama could sneak into the college football playoff, but this is a big win for Alabama, and it is equally as big of a loss for Georgia, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think it perfectly says about both of these teams what you really needed to know. And I kind of knew how this one was going to go offensively for Bama and defensively for Georgia. When you are 7 for 7 on third down in the first quarter is Alabama. Jeremy Bernard scored, and I literally said, we cannot have that happen. Jeremy Bernard was just kind of getting whatever he wanted alongside Ryan Williams, who was obviously balling out. Jeremy Bernard looked good as well. Busted coverages on the backside. I mean, Ryan Williams dropped a touchdown that Alabama ended up scoring on later on the drive, so it kind of didn't come back to bite them. But you had soft zones getting carved up. It was really looking like the Tennessee game early on, and I said it, like, the defense cannot sell us, and they sold us in the first half. Because Alabama didn't score in the second half, but they also didn't need to. And when you let Alabama jump all over you 14-0, and then you're up 24-14, like, you are not supposed to let those things happen. And I said if you came out slow, they were going to jump all over you. And that's what they did. Georgia also dropped an interception early in this game as well. Like, there had to have been high nerves, like Butterfingers. Maybe the football was wet. We saw it was kind of gloomy, as the game was opening up. But it was just horrible to see those missed opportunities. And you have Alabama absolutely confused in this one. They burned all 3 timeouts in the first quarter. So clearly the environment was just very intense for them, and the communications were very hard at that moment. And as a Georgia fan, you're feeding off that. You absolutely love that. Just late to the punch defensively, though. That's what it came down to. Georgia was just absolutely late to the punch defensively. Bama held the ball for 12 minutes in the first quarter and outgained Georgia by over 120 yards. And Ty Simpson balled out. Straight up. He had to have listened to the show when I was making my keys to victory for Georgia, because I said he doesn't feel like he's a special enough quarterback to beat an SEC defense. And that's what he did. And he made great read after great read. And he was crazy athletic. And they had him around on the, moving him out on bootlegs and different points of attack. And Ty Simpson just ate it all the way up. And really, like, the first two drives of the game for Alabama and showing how Georgia played defensively against it was everything. 28 plays, 170 yards, 2 touchdowns on the first 2 drives of the game. We see Nate Frazier fumble. I'm kind of wondering if he does still have a fumbling issue, because it's another crucial one after you force finally the first punt of the game. That ends up turning into 3 points for Alabama. So that direct turnover clearly hurt you. Thought it was a nice pass breakup by Robinson in the end zone over Jeremy Bernard to really be able to force that field goal for Alabama too, because we saw that, Robinson got picked on last week. He had an absolutely boneheaded late jump on the pile. Like, in the moment, I understood what he was doing to try to knock the pile down, while Alabama was trying to push the pile forward on, yards after the catch or yards after, like getting through the line of scrimmage. And that was just horrible on him. Had to make a remark on that, because that 15 yards just absolutely crushed you and kind of set up the game stealing runs for Alabama. But this is by far the biggest takeaway for me. Why is Kirby Smart not kicking that damn field goal? There's no excuse. You are inside the 10-yard line, and your team has not been in control for most of the ball game. I'll get to more takeaways in a second on how Georgia was able to get into this one. But despite everything that happened, how do you not kick that field goal? I get it. Like, your defense is selling you. Oh, you want to go for the touchdown there. You want to take the lead. But you get your team into a point of winning a type of game that you've only won one time, albeit it was the national championship against Nick Saban. But you're now 0-2 to Alabama in the Kalen DeBoer era. It is clearly an Alabama problem for Kirby Smart, and we've had this conversation, but it's going to continue to be had. Because once you decide to take those points, you're not playing from behind. You're not. You're forcing Alabama to come down the field and take the lead with a field goal, or just try to go ahead. You are now not playing on your heels. And out of all players, you hand it to Cash Jones. Chauncey Bowens was averaging 9, 10, 11 yards a carry. Chauncey Bowens could not be stopped. But you thought of a goofy draw play to the right? To Cash Jones. And Kirby's remarks after the ball game about, people ask him, like, people bring it to his attention. What are your thoughts on being 1-7 against Alabama and 100+ wins against the rest of the country? You know why his comments piss me off, Marcus? Because he always comes back with, what's everyone else's record? Kirby, they are not talking about everybody else's record, brother. Do not fit the toddler mentality with the toddler haircut that some people tell you that you have and come back with that remark. You're literally trying to gaslight and put the responsibility on other people. We're talking about you, Kirby Smart. He goes, I don't lose sleep at night over this record. Basically, I'm focused on being better and having fun with these guys as the games go on through the season. Are you fucking kidding me? Excuse my language. This doesn't keep you up at night? The fact that you are, well, like, we can get technical and say you're a Jamison Williams injury away of him not being in the national championship for being 0-8 against the Alabama Crimson Tide since you've been a head coach for the last decade at the University of Georgia. But that doesn't lose you sleep overnight? And I get it. You're trying to respond accurately. Like, you're trying to, I guess, not take the bait, right? But to me, it didn't feel like a bait question. And the rebuttals of what is everyone else's record? No, Kirby, your record is 1-7. And I'm not saying you need to lose sleep over it. And respectfully, it's not a rivalry. It's not a rivalry. It's just a great game that always comes down to Georgia losing. Up until this game, 5 of the last 6 games that Kirby Smart had played or had coached against Alabama, he had blown a 7-point lead. But he can't kick the field goal to make it a tie ball game. So you can finally capitalize on the energy that you were building throughout the whole game. I don't know why coaches hate points. Like, we see it in the NFL and we see it in college sometimes, but it blows me, Marcus, because in the second half, you literally got off the field on every single third down. Like, you turned it around in the second half on every single third down conversion. And you come out, you spoil their opening possession. You get a touchdown. You stop them again, but you cannot get into the end zone. You are knocking on the door. You literally have an opportunity to swing the entire game your way. No, we're just going to hand it to Cash Jones. We're going to hand it to Cash Jones on a horrible play call. Thanks, Mike Bobo. Love you for that one. We're not going to give it to Chauncey Bowens, who just absolutely crushed it in this game. Georgia as a team was averaging like 8-9 yards a carry. And honestly, man, the play calling for Gunnar Stockton too. Gunnar Stockton was not allowed to be Gunnar Stockton in this game. Now, I'm not going to discount. I can't remember what number or player it was, but the drop touchdown over the middle of the field, like, that's huge within itself. Alabama even misses a field goal to where if you hit that 3 points when you're supposed to kick that, like, that's a 6-point swing. That is a whole touchdown with a missed extra point swing. And I know Kirby has to think about this type of stuff. Like, these type of decisions have to be talked about as time goes on. When you're coaching, like, I am looking square at the coaching for this loss for the Georgia Bulldogs. I just, it's so stressful, Marcus, because you literally, like I'm sure it was the traditional Kirby not smart halftime cuss out. And my buddy said it perfectly last night. Alabama takes the lead and makes you take it back. Georgia gives up the lead and fights and claws and struggles and scratches back. And I thought the play calling also for Zach Branch, like, he was targeted plenty in this game. So that's where I got to go against the grain on you there. Like, I definitely think Zach Branch had a good hand in this play calling. But it's 25 more plays, crushed on third down, outgained, outpassed, more penalties, lost a turnover battle, crushed on time of possession. That's how Georgia comes up with a loss. But I'm looking at coaching this one. I'm looking at coaching in this one. I know you just stuck it out through my entire essential soliloquy of Kirby not smart. So we're going to get into the Oregon and Penn State game for you as Oregon survives Penn State in a double overtime whiteout game as top 10 opponents remain the kryptonite for James Franklin. Take it away, brother, and say everything you got, because I know this was a huge win for the Ducks.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of vindication for me on a personal note, and there's a lot of vindication for the Ducks, right? I mean, I think we just want to start on the Penn State side, and I think first of all, this game proved that James Franklin and Dabo Swinney are one and the same. Like, they're the same guy. They're both charismatic. They both can recruit. And they both can build 10-win programs. But when it comes to beating elite competition, they fold. James Franklin is 4-21 against top 10 opponents, and Penn State fans, I believe I saw somewhere, Penn State fans actually chanting "Fire Franklin" after that loss last night. It feels like Clemson under Dabo. They can beat the middle of their conference, but the ceiling against top contenders in the conference, that's where they come up short. The Penn State Nittany Lions under James Franklin at best will always be the third best team in the conference, which, when you have a conference that has Ohio State and Oregon, and apparently Indiana and Illinois are now trying to make some stuff shake, USC is trying to make some stuff shake, Michigan's looking like they're on the up and up now that Bryce under, like, you can't afford to just be the third best team in the conference. At some point, Penn State has to sit down and stake their claim as the best team in the conference. And I said to everybody who would listen, friends, foes, otherwise, leading into the season, I've even told you this, I have no idea why Penn State was ranked second in the country. I have no idea why Penn State was favored in this game, when the last time Penn State shared a field with Oregon last season at Lucas Oil Stadium in the Big Ten Championship game, they got blown out, which brings me to my second point. Drew Allar's not ready for the big time. He's not. This is the second game against Oregon where he has been in a position where he absolutely has to win, and they've lost. Now, I will give credit where credit is due. He went 14 for 25. He completed 137 yards. He did have a touchdown, right? But he threw an interception, and that interception was the game sealer in double overtime that sealed the loss for them. Right? So yeah, he did have those 2 touchdowns, but when the lights are brightest, you have to elevate your team. And instead, once again, Drew Aller looked hesitant, and Oregon's defense bailed him into, might I add, the exact same mistake he made at the end of the Big Ten championship game last season. Until Drew Aller shows consistency against top teams, I can't say that he is one of the 3, 5, 7, 10 best quarterbacks in the country. If you're going to make a stupid read like that on the sideline and what is essentially double bracket coverage of the coverage that you've seen in this game multiple times over and the coverage that you saw at the end of the Big Ten championship game last season. Clearly, Drew Aller hasn't learned from his mistakes. As far as what this means for the conference, I don't see how Penn State makes it to the Big Ten championship. In fact, the only way that Big Ten can make it to the Big Ten championship is if they beat Ohio State. That's their only route. I've been saying this, and I told you this, I've been saying this all off season long, leading up and all season leading to this game. The winner of this game gets Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. And for Penn State, this win was more important for them than it was for Oregon because Oregon doesn't have to play Ohio State. So now Penn State has to remain a 1-loss team and beat Ohio State. That's a tall order. I don't think it's going to happen. They're going to once again be the 3rd best team in the Big Ten for the 2nd year in a row, and James Franklin's just going to have to live with that. Now, I'm done crapping. I'm done crapping on the Penn State Nittany Lions because now it's time for me to say all the things I've been saying all season that I wasn't really allowed to say them because we were beating Montana State and Oklahoma State and Northwestern. We weren't Oregon State. We weren't beating good competition. So first and foremost, DeCorian Moore is to Dante Moore what Ryan Williams is to Ty Simpson. DeCorian Moore is to Dante Moore what Jeremiah Smith is to Julian Saint. This is a quarterback wide receiver duo where the receiver doesn't just put up stats, he unlocks the quarterback. Against Penn State, DeCorian Moore had 7 catches for 89 yards, and every time Dante Moore needed a big play for a big drive, DeCorian Moore was the answer. We see the same thing with Alabama and Ryan Williams, right? Ty Simpson leans on him in crunch time. We see the same thing on Ohio State. Julian Saint leans on Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State. These are the kinds of partnerships that define seasons. These are the kinds of partnerships that win you championships. Think about Joe Burrow and Justin Jefferson and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Like, these are the types of things you want to see. Mac Jones and Devontae Smith. These are the moments where you look up and you say, there's a quarterback and a wide receiver that when they are clicking, there is not a defense in the country who can stop them. And I've been saying all off season long that when you bring in the number 1 freshman recruit at wide receiver into Oregon with this guy, Dante Moore, who was the best quarterback, if I'm not mistaken, in his class coming into UCLA, there is something to love there. No one wanted to hear it. And now we saw it here in Happy Valley in the whiteout game. Then you take a look at the backfield. Oregon, I told you this too, best running back room in the country. And Saturday was proof. De'Aaron Hill Jr., 82 yards on just 10 carries. Jordan Davison had another touchdown on 4th down, but that's not it. We didn't get to see Mekhi Hughes in this game. We saw a little bit of Noah Whittington. We didn't really see much of Jordan James. There is a lot of depth to this running back room, but it's not just the depth, it's the versatility. There's power, there's speed, there's the pass catching ability. Whatever you need out of your running back, there's a running back in our running back room who can do it. So while Dante Moore is the headline, it's our ability to rotate elite backs that makes our offense so hard to stop. And in Happy Valley against one of the best defenses in the country, I will give Penn State that, our running backs tilted the field. That's why this is the 100%. Best running back room in the country. This game was won by Oregon in the trenches, and that started with our running backs. And last, but certainly not least, they said it during the broadcast. I've been saying it since the beginning of the offseason, and I'll get to say it here again officially. Kenyon Sadiq is the best tight end in the country. Full stop. First of all, you can just look at the tape from last year's Big Ten title game against this same team. 2 touchdowns, including a ridiculous 28-yard catch and run where he broke tackles like wide receiver. But this year, he's become Dante Moore's go-to safety valve. He absolutely is. He's like become
when you said
Dante
tight end,
Moore's,
I was like, damn, I actually forgot. Like he plays.
He doesn't
like
even have a tight end body. He doesn't even have a tight end body. He has
like Kyle
body
Pitts
and the ability of a wide receiver. This year, Kenyon Sadiq has become Dante Moore's go-to safety valve, and he's delivering chunk plays every single week. His size, his athleticism, his hands. There's not another tight end in the country that can hold a candle to what Kenyon Sadiq is able to do as an all-around tight end. Brock Bowers was that guy for Georgia a couple years ago, and now Kenyon Sadiq is that guy for Dante Moore. I am not at all here going to sit here and tell you that the Oregon Ducks are going to win the national championship. I'm not telling you that the Oregon Ducks are the best team in the country. But what I am telling you is after 4 weeks of doing what we needed to do, taking care of our tune-up games, to walk into Happy Valley as underdogs for a team we have no business being underdogs to and winning that game. I'll be honest, I don't care that Penn State forced overtime because I knew, I wasn't nervous. I knew when the going got tough, Drew Aller was going to shrink, and he did again. And so now you have the remainder of the season to continue to beef up this resume, to continue to turn out all the kinks, to continue to prove that you are one of the best teams in the country. Last season, Oregon was the only undefeated team in the country. And again, I am not here to tell you that they're going to do that again. But what I am here to tell you is that the toughest bump in the road to undefeated, we just overcame it. So all we had to do the rest of the way is take care of
Who's
business.
left on that
and
schedule?
Of course, would include a game in the Big Ten Championship. I can pull it up for you. I know that we have our bye week this week, and then we have Indiana, which is going to be a good one.
That's going to be a good one.
We have Wisconsin, we have Iowa, we have Minnesota, we have USC the weekend before Thanksgiving, and then we have Washington the weekend of Thanksgiving. So our toughest game left on the schedule is
and Washington. Yeah. Penn State was the tough one. Indiana's going to be tough too. I think USC and Washington can maybe give you a run for their money just based. I mean, Washington just clamped Ohio State for a half. I don't think it's really anything to worry about with Ohio State.
But I think by that time in the season,
right? And Washington was pissed, like they were undefeated, like we knew it was going to be chippy. They were at home, like.
Yeah. Those games, Oregon and USC, Oregon and Washington, they always give us good games. It's like that's the one thing I don't love, the fact that pretty much all the Pac-12 teams moved to the Big Ten. But the one thing I do enjoy is that we do still have these old Pac-12 matchups at the end of the season with USC and with Washington. So again, I don't think we're going to go undefeated because I can easily see us losing that game against Indiana. Especially if we get too big-headed or come off a little bit too sluggish coming out of the bye week. I think back to how we lost the Rose Bowl game. We came out flat because we didn't play the game the week before. Ohio State did. They're feeling ready, good to go. We come on the Rose Bowl game and they just trample us the first that entire first half. So hopefully we don't get a repetition of that. But if we do, I could very easily see us losing that game against Indiana. The thing I love though is that we are where we belong. We are a top 3 team in the country. We were a top 3 team in the country, in my opinion, heading into the season. And now we finally have that ranking. We are officially the number 2 team in the country. And I think there's not a lot of things that there's not a lot of things that the AP poll has gotten right this season. That I can say is one of them. And yes, I am biased with that a bit.
You deserve it, bro. You went on the road as an underdog, as the number 6 team. Penn State was favored.
Penn State was favored, yeah.
I think
they were favored by like 2.5 or 3.5.
Yeah. That's basically because you were at home.
Mm-hmm.
Like you guys are the second best team in the country. Firmly. And I would argue after the way Ohio State played, you could be number 1. And not only because you're my co-host when we talk about college football and because you're an Oregon fan. Like, genuinely. I would say that's huge. You just beat Penn State on the road in a whiteout game.
Yeah. This is their first time.
It's hard to be the same team twice.
This is the first time losing a whiteout game since 2018. And again, James Franklin can't be the big one. And I would say, to your point about Ohio State, I would say if you put Ohio State and Oregon on the field right now, I think Oregon wins that game. And the only reason why, and I'm not saying that as a fan, objectively football speaking, I think you have to talk about, at the end of the day, when you have teams who are this good on both sides of the ball, it boils down to 2 things. It boils down to head coaching and it boils down to quarterback play. Ryan Day is a better head coach than Dan Lanning. I will not disagree with you there. But Dante Moore has proved so far to this point in the season, he is better than Julian Sain. He's more dynamic. He has a better arm. He's more versatile. He's a dual threat. I mean, we saw time and time again in that game when everything was locked down and blanketed up, he just tucked it and ran himself in for a touchdown. I mean, even on that final drive to what would take us the lead before Penn State would come down and tie it up, he goes down and runs it right up the middle, right through the tackles for a first down, gets down to 1st and goal. So, like, I think there are elements of Dante Moore's game that makes our offense just a little bit better. We are not the explosive offense that we were of last season. Obviously, that's because, we don't have Evan Stewart because he's hurt. We don't have Tez Johnson, obviously, and things of that nature. So that does matter. But I still think if you put our 2 teams on a field right now and just played 60 minutes of football, I think Oregon comes out with a pretty close win, which is why I'm looking forward to what I believe is now going to be the Big Ten matchup or the Big Ten championship matchup of Oregon and Ohio State, because I honestly believe, given everything that we've seen so far this season, the winner of that game is winning the national championship.
Damn.
Like I love Georgia always. I'll always have a special place in my heart for Georgia just because Georgia is just always a good football team. But I think the SEC is going to get really, really muddy really, really
Oh,
quick.
yeah. The
It's
days
gonna
of
be hard.
going undefeated in the SEC are over.
Yeah, I mean, you've
Over.
got Texas A&M and M and Ole Miss and
Who
Mizzou and
looks
South
real.
Carolina. Like these are going to be tough
Yeah.
outs in the SEC, right? You have over in the ACC, like we know it's Florida State, Miami, but neither of those teams can hold a candle to Oregon or Ohio State, really. And if you go over to
Right,
the Big
right.
12, I mean, the Big 12 is like the Cinderella of the Power Four conferences. Like no one really worries about the Big 12 much. Like the Big 12 team's going to get in because they have to, but that's really
Yep,
it's like the NFC and AFC South, right? Like they're going to get in because someone's got to win the division, so they're going to get a
yep.
playoff appearance. Aside from that, like no one's really sweating Big 12 teams, and of course you have the Group of Four conference as well. But I do think that the winner of the Big Ten championship game is going to win the national championship, and I think that's a sign to show the strength of the Big Ten, which obviously we've always known the Big Ten is the second best conference in the country, but I think now we're getting to see that now in back-to-back seasons. Obviously, Oregon, last undefeated team in the country, Big Ten school. National champion, Ohio State, Big Ten school. This
Right.
season, number one, number two, heading into week 5, Big Ten schools. And
Okay,
then,
buddy. Okay.
like, I just really look, we love the SEC. SEC
Yeah,
gives us
yeah.
a lot of great football all
Yep.
the time, but all I'm saying is I don't think there's an SEC school right now, and that includes Georgia. I don't
Mhm.
think there's an SEC school right now that could beat Ohio State or Oregon. And with Georgia, it's just the coaching, bro. Because they have the talent. I told you they have the talent. I know they have the
Mhm,
talent. I just want to
mhm.
see a full 60 minutes of well-coached football from the Georgia Bulldogs. You give me that,
Yeah,
I think Georgia can go all the way.
yeah. You don't think there's an SEC team that could beat either Ohio State or Oregon right now? Give me, like, 10 seconds. I'm
Nope.
really thinking.
Please do. I think Georgia's the only one that has a chance. That's because it's Georgia.
Yeah, yeah, and Alabama honestly just has Georgia's number, and, as much as we just said it, I don't know if that
My
loss is
thing
more
with
about Georgia.
Alabama,
That loss is more about
If Alabama still had Jalen Milroe, sure. But Ty Simpson's limited as the dual threat. And I think when you have
yeah,
those two defenses who love to
right,
get after the quarterback,
right,
I don't know.
right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you might be right, bro, because Tennessee just effed around against Mississippi State. Georgia just lost
Yeah.
to Alabama. Do you really trust Alabama, in that type of matchup to where it's just, it just seems like the Big Ten is like they're fast. They're just faster right now. They're
And I
more
think that
physical.
speed kills. And I think that's the
Yeah,
part of it.
100%.
Big, there's what I love about watching all the Big Ten games yesterday actually were like the old, like even Gus Johnson said it during the USC Illinois game. For most of that game, it felt like old fashioned Big Ten football, like running it right up the middle, very physical, one in the trenches, which is all things that we associate with the SEC for so long. The difference though is that Big Ten has the speed and the finesse on the outside that
Yeah,
isn't always associated by and large with SEC teams. We've seen some speed and some finesse come through the SEC over the years, right? Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram, Julio Jones, the list goes on and on and on. There's been a lot of speed, a lot of finesse in the SEC.
right.
But this current iteration of the SEC, I would like to say that Ohio State or Oregon could go into the SEC and beat any team other than Georgia, assuming we get a perfectly coached game from Georgia for 60 minutes.
I'll honestly, bro, I'll give that to you. I will give that to you because yeah, if Georgia coached well for 60 minutes, they would have beat Alabama yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't trust. Let me just list off the top teams in the SEC. You got Georgia, you got Alabama, just general. Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Auburn.
Mhm.
Texas and Oklahoma. I'm not really worried about Scar. I'm not really worried about Mizzou. I'm not really worried about Mississippi State. So like you take those 7 and you're probably right. You're probably right. You're right. I'll give that to you. SEC is still superior though. I actually just had this conversation a
As
week
a
one with Jason
conference,
Sports.
absolutely.
Yeah, and when you just look back over the last 10, 15, 20 years, like the champions that have really taken it
Yeah.
home and the viewership of the SEC championship and all, not that viewership really drives like results, but obviously the fans do really
Yeah.
dictate like what is, like, hey, is this
It's a
is
much
this really a
deeper
pumped up
conference
game?
for sure. It's a
Yeah,
much
yeah,
deeper
but
conference. The depth of the Big Ten has always been you get the top 3 teams and then that 4th and 5th team just kind of rotates out every single year. Like this year looks like that 4th or 5th team is going to be some combination of Illinois, Indiana, and USC. But Penn State, Oregon, and Ohio State are still going to be the 3 best teams in the conference this season. You just don't have 7 to 8 teams in the Big Ten that you're looking at and you're saying, oh, any one of those teams they get hot can win it all.
yeah,
Whereas with the SEC, you can absolutely say that all the time.
right. And I'll come right back at you and say I would take any team in the SEC to beat Penn State handily.
I
Honestly,
agree.
I would.
I
I
agree.
would. I would. I would like to venture to say that maybe unranked South Carolina right now would be able to give them a run, even though
They'd have a
Tennessee
lot
just
of
messed around
problems
against
with
Mississippi
Lenore
State.
Sellers.
You know, huh?
They'd have a lot of problems with Lenore Sellers.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
Yep.
Good banter there, though, bro. I really had to think that one through, but hey, this is why we have you on the show, bro. That's why I have you on the show. Penn State fans, y'all got to be absolutely sick after this loss because James Franklin is at home in a whiteout game, hasn't lost since 2018. In one of those situations, you have a chance to silence the doubters and break the standards of James Franklin is bad against top 10 teams because he is now 4-21. Oregon missed a field goal early on in the game, and Penn State just cannot capitalize. Because when you ask Drew Aller to win you the game, to make you a throw, he throws an interception in overtime. And I know you were talking about the throw that, he's seen that disguise before. I understood the read, and it was actually a good decision. It was a bad execution. That ball needed more float over the top. I think the receiver would have caught it. The question is, does he hang on after the safety lays the hit?
Oh,
that would be the real question. Yeah. And safety was going to smack him because safety was coming up. But there's still more to be desired there. But I understood the read, but hey, it goes down horribly. Like that throw is literally in overtime to lose you the football game. And this was a heavily defensive game up until the last couple of drives for the both teams. Penn State's offense finally starts turning towards the end of the game. I'm not going to really sit here and glaze Drew Aller over that touchdown pass because it was a nice throw, but that was pitch and catch, like clean pocket, loaded up, made the throw easy. He got in standing up, busted the backside of the coverage on the post. Like it was just a great play call overall. And you even had Dante Moore early on trying to hit a spin cycle, but Penn State and that crowd stifled another 4th and short attempt from Oregon early on. But you got to give the respect to Dan Lanning as he continues to stay with it, getting through it in the game. And this was a perfect game of this quarterback can win you a game and play well, Dante Moore, versus this guy has to have everything go right, Andrew Aller, respectfully and respectively, because there was just a difference of two quarterbacks in this game. I mean, Drew Aller just holds the ball forever. He looks uncertain in the pocket. I don't see growth from last year in big games like expected. Like, I'll give him the credit on that little banana peel slip where he had a nice 3rd and 8 completion, 2 defenders collapsing on him in the pocket. He's able to make a great throw, and he's decently mobile and has had some huge scrambles in his career, and especially in this game on money downs when it was needed. Really, the MVP of this game, I thought, for Penn State was Ross, who had a really nice touchdown to tie it up on that gorgeous, probably, I mean, obviously, the plays where you score touchdowns are probably the best play calls drawn up, but like not always when you look at the hindsight and the context and the potential EPA of maybe how it played out. But like the simplicity of those two plays for Andy Kotelnicki was easily by far the 2 best play calls of the game for Penn State. And it's not only because they score touchdowns, they just so happen to score touchdowns on those plays. But again, when you called on Drew Aller, he folded. He unfortunately folded. But then you look at Dante Moore, 3rd and 3, middle of the 3rd quarter, flush to the right of the field, throwing back across his body to Sadiq, who just might as well be a wide receiver at this point. Then the 3rd and 10 scramble in the red zone ends up being 4th and 1. Obviously, Oregon is able to convert that. And again, shout out to Dan Lanning. He just kept chipping away on money downs. They were 11 of 25 on 3rd and 4th down in this game, a perfect 5 for 5 on 4th down in the ball game. And obviously, you can do the math on the 3rd downs. I believe they were 5 for 5 in the ball game on 3rd down, including a 20-yard conversion on 4th down to your freshman wide receiver. And I'm honestly blown that Penn State could not capitalize early on in that missed field goal. They did not directly take advantage of it in this game. I thought it was an amazing review and overturn of the potential long fumble recovery by Penn State. Literally the knee barely grazing the top of the grass. Like kudos to the crew for getting that one right. And speaking of the running back, Hill Jr., Dante Moore, I mean, they crushed it in the run game. They absolutely had Penn State on their heels the whole time. I can't lie, though, Marcus. I can't lie. And you're going to hate to hear me say this. Oregon was up 17-3 and allowed this game to go to double overtime is a direct indictment on Dan Lanning's defensive mind at this point for him as the Oregon head coach. Because for the past few seasons now, this defense goes full Baltimore Ravens mode. They get shaky with a big lead late, or they just honestly get blown through defensively. We saw it last year multiple times. Would you offer me an Ohio State matchup times two? I'm not going to hold you to the cross for it because they were the Death Star mothership that just nobody could get through last year in college football. But Dan Lanning's defensive lapses in key moments, like there was no reason that Penn State should have been able to put up 14 points in 11 minutes of game time. I'm sorry, but they shouldn't have. They were being absolutely shut down. Drew Aller could only scramble. You were depending on Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, who I respectfully think are better than your running back room in Oregon. I know that your guys can get it done when needed, but I'd also like to offer you Notre Dame's running back room as well. Back to the indictment of Dan Lanning's defensive mind, though, this is a problem that I think, and I can't say anything because Georgia's defense just sold them. But as we do speak football here on the show, like until Dan Lanning is able to work out that characteristic from his defensive mastermind that he brings to the table, I don't know if Oregon can win a national championship with that type of formula because you give up 21 unanswered points until you score in the first overtime. And then you almost have number 71 with his unsportsmanlike conduct actually cost Oregon. I thought that was a super ticky-tack call, but the flag was thrown, right? Penn State, though, I mean, they still have that identity of running the football, and it was shocking that actually they were able to come alive in this game, considering that Katron Allen and Nick Singleton combined for 23 carries, 75 yards, and 1 touchdown. We almost had a potential bailout in this game for Penn State to win it because Dante Moore fumbled the snap. If Penn State recovers that, that's ball game. But you obviously, he falls on it. Drew Aller comes back, throws an interception. Oregon is able to win the game. The missed call in overtime for targeting was absolutely egregious. I know you saw that hit on your quarterback. That should have been an absolute targeting against Dante Moore. I don't remember what defender it was coming in, but I mean, his head snapped back and the defender led with his helmet. And they said after the review, there's no targeting call. But you can see a knee scrape a blade of grass and know that that's down, but a head can't snap back and it's a targeting call? I guess I digress with the referees on that front. Last game before we get out of here, man, on episode 121. LSU is exactly who we thought they were. They fall to Ole Miss 24-19 in Mississippi, and I had LSU losing this game. They were squeaking by inferior competition and on the road in a hostile environment against that defense, against that team. Lane Kiffin, I didn't think it was going to happen. Take it away, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to kind of say what I said earlier. I think Ole Miss is going to ruin a lot of playoff chances this year for a lot of SEC teams. You look at the remainder, of their schedule as far as SEC competition is concerned. They have a game against Georgia in 2 weeks. They have a game against Oklahoma. Then they play South Carolina. Then they play Florida and Mississippi State. Now, of those teams I listed, the only other team really has a legitimate shot at the college football playoff is Georgia. They're 12th in the country. However, Oklahoma, as it stands right now, is 5th. So, maybe they could see it as well. But you look at this game. I mean, this game was just absolutely – this was to steal the NFL term, this was the perfect trap game for LSU, and they fell right in it, right? I mean, Trinidad Chambliss threw for 314 yards, and he looked absolutely fearless. Reminded me of how Tommy Castellanos looked in week 1 against Alabama. And I think when you look at this Ole Miss team, I mean, this is a team that is capable of winning them dirty. Right. When you and I talked earlier in the season, we talked about how Kentucky is a tough team to beat because you go into their house and even though they're not always that great, they can get the job done. Ole Miss at this point now is 17-1, I believe, in their last 18 home games. Like that's a really, really, really big deal. And so when you see Washington State come in next week, you have to look at that and say, that's a win for the number 4 team in the country. When you have to go to Athens, they probably lose that game because it's in Athens, but you still then have to go to Oklahoma and then you finish your season with 3 straight home games before going to Mississippi State. I think Ole Miss can make a lot of noise. And I think for Lane Kiffin, it's a big win. Like Lane Kiffin needed a signature win. And I'm glad he finally got it because I think that would have been the next thing. That he would have been the next coach we kind of look at and say, what's really happening here? Like, is he really worth all the big bucks that we're paying? So that's a big win for Lane Kiffin. That's a big win for Ole Miss. It's a big win for Trinidad Chambliss. And I think Ole Miss, again, like I said, right now, Ole Miss is the number 4 team in the country, right behind Ohio State, Oregon, and Miami, I believe, are number 3. They deserve it. I'd say they deserve it up to this point, and I think if they can
Miami dropped one being idle, but you had to reward Oregon.
Yeah, You
I
have
mean,
to
honestly,
roll
you
over
could have
your
dropped you could have dropped Ohio State to 3, put Miami at 2, and left them at 2, and put Oregon at 1. I would argue that.
That's reasonable, but I think the beautiful, it's a blessing and a curse. If you're the number 1 seed, it's a bless. If you're ranked number 1, it's a blessing. If you're not, it's a curse. When you're number 1, they give you a lot of benefit of the doubt. As long as you win a football game, that's all that matters.
Honestly, yes.
Unless the number 2 team in the country just absolutely goes out here and just slaps a team around, you are not, you know what I mean? Like you're not gonna see that drop for number 1. So that's I mean, I think they deserve it. They are the best team in the country. I do think that. I mean, I would say the only thing about the rankings that I don't like, and this is just merely
Oklahoma and Texas A&M are grossly overranked.
I also don't understand how Texas is ranked ahead of Alabama, considering the win Alabama just got. But
correct,
given
Texas should not be ahead of Alabama.
Given the fact that Alabama was
Georgia is laughable.
Given the fact that Alabama was 19th,
Absolutely
I guess you have to take the +9 and just deal with it. But there's no reason why Texas should be ranked number 9. They don't have a win nearly as good as the win that Alabama has against Georgia, and they won't have a win this season nearly as good as Alabama's win over Georgia, unless they beat Georgia.
Ole Miss is grossly overrated too. They're giving them a huge bump up. 9
LSU
spots.
was 4th. So
yeah, but LSU is a fraud, bro.
Well,
but
yes,
this is what
I don't
this
disagree
is what the committee does. This is what the poll does. They grossly overrank people, and then when an underdog beats them, they pump them up. Like,
no, I don't disagree.
Why did Miami jump to 2 after handling an unranked Florida? Why?
Yeah.
Oh, you're telling me Ole Miss is the 4th best team in the country after handling a fraudulent LSU team who struggled all season after week 1 outside of handling business last week? That's the 4th best team in the country over that team in LSU? I'm taking the rage bait, clearly. But like
it's okay. I took the rage bait when Texas was ranked number 1 in the
right. It's because this shit matters. Like, this is what they look back on. They look back. How many weeks did you spend here? How many weeks did you spend there? Where did you jump to after this win? How did you handle this? This is literally like unless you're going back and you have like a context log of like, this is why this game happened, you're looking at box scores, you're looking at rankings. Unless you're going back and looking at your specific takeaways, AP poll. Who's trying to convince me that Miami's the number 2 team? Yeah. You know, I mean, I don't know. Miami is overrated. Ole Miss is overrated. Oklahoma is overrated. Texas A&M is overrated. And I have respect for all of them. I really do. Clearly, Penn State was overrated to begin with because, I mean, we just saw how
this is the SEC bias that we're talking about, though.
Say again?
This is the SEC bias that we always complain about at the end of the
season.
You've got 1, 2, 3. Well, there are half of the top 10 SEC teams.
Yep. LSU at 13. I mean, they fall, 9 spots. Florida State plummeted to number 18 after being number 10. See, here's the thing. So Auburn as number 24, the Auburn-Oklahoma outcome has me baffled, and that's going to ripple effect through the rest of the year. I'm going to give you my take so we can get out of here on the final game. Auburn as number 24 loses by 1 possession. An illegal touchdown was involved. You were a road dog, and you fall out because you lose to number 11 close? But Florida State loses to unranked Virginia, and Florida State got outplayed the whole game. I don't care that they tied it up and sent it to overtime. They should have never been in that position. And they stay in the rankings? And then Ole Miss beats a fraudulent LSU and is now grossly overranked at number 4. It makes for a good talking point. It really does. Like, it it does, but I mean, damn, man, I don't know. I don't get it. And then, Arizona State beats TCU, so they just like barely jump in. It's just it's odd. It's very odd.
To say the least.
I guess that's my little reaction to the top 25. But again, I had LSU losing this game coming in. Like, y'all just heard all the takes that I said about them being fraudulent. And if you keep up with the show, you know exactly how I feel. And I know it breaks y'all's heart to have this behind me and be an LSU hater, but that's what makes it NFL with AJL. Like, I will give y'all a video eventually to tell you why my fandom is split the way that it is, but I know it pains y'all. You want to meet me in the SEC championship, buddy? Okay, let's meet. Come on. We're pissed after the Alabama loss. I would love to play LSU. I'm actually upset that we don't play y'all. I really am. So I know it pains LSU fans when they see, oh, you're a Georgia fan. How could you, oh my God, you're a Saints fan too. How can you do that? It's just how the cookie crumbles. And when your team is not playing well, no matter who I'm a fan of, I'm going to call you out. And I'm going to just go ahead and give you another dagger, LSU. I am not sold on Garrett Nussmeier. And if the New Orleans Saints, for some reason, with their offensive coordinator being the father of Garrett Nussmeier, decide to pick him, to be continued. To be continued, because Garrett Nussmeier does not look like he's it so far this year. I know he was in my Heisman conversation for a little bit in the first couple of weeks. We definitely got to redefine that next time we get on the show. But, you know, everyone is so sold on him in this college football season, and I'm not. And he showed that in this game. He was good in the opener against Clemson, but his performance against Florida, his performance against Ole Miss are not to write home about. He is, per PFF, 19th in big-time throws, which is throws 20-plus yards down the field, and he only has 4 turnover-worthy plays, so he is very good in those departments. But not giving him a run game put a ton of pressure on Garrett Nussmeier, and asking him to win this game with his arm in this situation on the road, the way that you've been playing all year, like past Garrett Nussmeier, sure. This game, not the formula. Not going to work out for him like that. LSU was outgained by 200-plus yards. They were heavily outrushed, and they will awful on third down offensively. 1 rushing yard in the first quarter for LSU. 56 rushing yards on the day for LSU. That's why your quarterback struggled, because you put all the pressure on him. The middle of the second quarter, I think, did LSU in this game. Here's the sequence. So the Tigers win the turnover battle 2-1, including an early fumble by Ole Miss in the middle of the second quarter inside the 5-yard line, and it was recovered for a touchback by LSU. Then you have a roughing the passer on Whit Weeks. Then you have 2 huge pass interference calls in your secondary. One led to a pick 6 that actually got wiped away. He clearly did pull him. He held him. And then 1 inside the 5-yard line. That is mental mistakes. That is blown chances. And Brian Kelly, I'm looking at you for where is the discipline with your team? Are you going to slam the hand down on your desk and say, I'm tired of losing like this? Because you give arguably the most childish post-game pressers. You're getting pissed because you're being asked off of 5 turnovers off of maybe the worst quarterback in the SEC and DJ Lagway why you can't put up more than an average of a safety with 5 interceptions. So I'm going to sit here and look at you again as your team blows it in the middle of the second quarter and your quarterback is not able to make plays, Brian Kelly. Yeah, I'm looking directly at you. I am. And it was a great 14-point run by Ole Miss in this game to really just kind of be able to take advantage. I mean, they capitalized off those 2 huge PI calls and then the amazing 2-minute drill that Ole Miss ran. It was just cinema, man. It really was. And I'll say it right now. LSU does not have the correct head coach in the building to win another national championship. Brian Kelly does not strike me as a big game winner. And don't feed me that Clemson bullshit from earlier in the year, because I'm not hearing it. I'm not. And nobody else should, because we're going to have a segment soon on why Dabo Swinney should really be moved on from. LSU does not have a head coach that is capable of winning them a national championship. And honestly, that's what Brian Kelly gets for bailing on Notre Dame. Notice how Notre Dame goes to the national championship with Marcus Freeman, who I think we can all sit here and agree that Marcus Freeman is a way better head coach than Brian Kelly right now. If I wanted either of those 2 guys to come coach Georgia, give me Marcus Freeman. Give me Marcus Freeman all day, every Saturday, and twice on Sunday if he wants to come coach the Saints. I love you, Kellen Moore. No jab intended there. Trinidad Chambliss, absolute monster. I mean, he himself outplayed Garrett Nussmeier. Biggest test of the year, and he passed it. He outplayed a top NFL quarterback prospect in Garrett Nussmeier, and it wasn't close. 381 total yards, 71 rushing. Passing touchdown. His sole interception was a tip drill that really his wide receivers sold him on. He lost the battle on it. But this was just a big win for Ole Miss to ease the pain of a last year's heartbreaking loss to the exact same LSU Tigers. Because Ole Miss had Jackson Dart last year. Like, you felt like you had all the pieces last year, especially after Jackson Dart comes out and beats Georgia and Lane Kiffin is getting the type of hype that he gets. Like, that's why, in my opinion, Jackson Dart went first round because he beat Georgia last year. I'm sorry. To me, that is why he went first round. And LSU's defense just continues to sell them every single, not even continue to sell them every single week. Let me not say something ignorant like that. I'm getting carried away. But their run defense between Chambliss and Lacey, along with busted coverages and soft underneath shallow outside zones that are just absolutely getting carved up, LSU struggles to defend the run against SEC run games. Can you offer me Jalen Milroe? 4 rushing touchdowns the last 2 years that he played you? 4 rushing touchdowns from Jalen Milroe. He crushed you. And you got crushed in this game by Trinidad Chambliss, who is filling in for Austin Simmons. It's immaculate that he also passed the test again the way that he did. 3rd straight start filling in for Austin Simmons. And then Ole Miss this year, you just get absolutely carved up. Speaking of LSU's defense, like it's their run defense has to be worked on. It's got to be worked on because it is egregious at this point. That's going to wrap up episode 121 of the NFL with AJL. Appreciate the heck out of everybody jumping in for all things college football. Week 5 is, I'm just going to say it, college football is better than the NFL. I have been inducted into it. I'm going to do a piece on this because I think it is undeniable that college football is better than the National Football League. I know it feels weird to hear me say that because the show's name is NFL with AJL, but y'all got to watch the games. Marcus, before we get out of here, do your thing.
It's always a pleasure. And I'm sure I'll be back for the next 3 episodes. So
the thumbs up. You get tired of me, bro? Are you bored with me?
No, of course not. I enjoy talking football with people who can talk football. No, I'll never be bored.
Okay.
I've done shows with you at 11 o'clock at night. I've done shows with you at 6 o'clock in the early evening. I've done shows with you at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I will never be tired of coming on this show. I should be asking you if you're tired of me.
Nah.
Question.
Nah. Not at all. I was funny. I was looking at some of the episode thumbnails. I was like, damn, this man really on a run right now. He on a playoff run with NFL with AJL. Shit, let's go.
Hey, man.
Appreciate you.
I can't get mad at it.
Appreciate you as always, man. At Marcus Talk Sports, at Protect Our Queens, at Give Us a Shot Network for all of his content. Check him out at NFL with AJL. Linktree is in the description for every bit of that content. Please like and share the show wherever you're watching. Leave a review wherever you are listening on podcast platforms. We would love for you to get in the comments. Please subscribe, hit the bell so you never miss a post. You know what we do here. We love y'all. We need y'all, and we will see y'all in the next one.